Buenas tardes from beautiful Barrio Banuca in Matagalpa, Nicaragua. Today's latest edition for Journeys of a Malcontent is themed Someone's Knocking at My Door. It was Migracion. So, a little bit about today. Average Wednesday, Thursday mornings, I get up, I get cleaned up, I make the bed. Periodically, I'm doing laundry early in the morning so I can hang it to dry. And made some coffee for the landlord and the maintenance guy. She brought over extra fruit. I made a fruit smoothie of some local indigenous fruits with a little coconut cream and some milk and a little bit of honey, and had a nice little breakfast. And went down the road. I hit the ATM for money for the month. I walked over to where my class is. I attended my 1 hour class of Espanol. And I decided I was going to hit lunch early because we have a live stream with Scott Allen Miller's videos on Thursday on his YouTube channel. So I said I'll go get lunch early. I went to where Recon Azteca used to be because they moved upstairs. And we had a new buffet in. And I will be giving a different review on later, but the food was great. I got a big platter of food today for lunch and a fresh squeezed juice for a whopping $7.50 US, full meal. Again, knowing I was going to be home for the long haul today, I didn't have enough caffeine in me. I stopped over at Brooklyn Cafe. I'm getting myself an iced cappuccino. And as I'm enjoying my cappuccino, I get a phone call from my realtor going, "Where are you? Migracion is waiting for you at your apartment." I just saw them 8 days ago. You ask for an expectation of when you're going to get I was told I was going to get a phone call. So the heart's pounding through the chest. And to her credit, Wendy said she was going to, Wendy Gutierrez, rock star, said she would pick me up and get me over to the apartment in quick speed. I said I can be downstairs from the cafe in about 3 minutes. Paid for my drink, slammed my iced coffee, ran downstairs, didn't take the elevator, ran down the 3 flights of stairs. I got bad knees, if you know. So they were literally outside, picked me up, and she's driving me over. And there is a traffic jam on one road and the road blocked due to construction on the other. So she lets me out, and I briskly walk as fast as I can, dodging around people because it was as if everybody wanted to walk in slow motion and walk immediately in front of me. That was the perception. So I'm swerving around people on foot. I get over to the apartment and I see a small vehicle with lights on the top. It literally looked like an old post office Jeep with 70s police car lights on top. 2 guys in full uniform sitting outside waiting on me. There is no air conditioning in that vehicle. I said, so I looked around. They looked over. It's obvious it's me. And I opened the first door. We come upstairs. I open the second door. I greet them into the living room. I sit them down, and my heart is pumping because this interview has to be done completely in Spanish. My Spanish skills are not where they need to be or where I want them to be. So I am in a mild panic mode. They saw that I was briskly getting there. I was sweating. I get them sit down. I turn a fan on to keep them cool because they're wearing heavy-duty uniforms. Those are thick. I don't know how they do it in the heat here, but whatever. They're used to it. I'm not. So we sit down, and to my reprieve, they pulled out their phone to translate something with Google Translate, and I was allowed to do the same. The first thing they wanted to do was see a copy of my lease. Now, I had submitted my copy of my lease to Migracion 8 days ago when I was there on May 7th. So I told them, I turned it in, and they said, well, that's our first problem because we need to see a copy of it here. Now, these guys weren't from the local office. They were actually from Managua's Migracion, the main office. So they were a little surprised that the information wasn't readily available for whatever. So I called my landlord, who had already been in contact with these guys, and she showed up halfway through the interview. She provided a copy of the lease. Okay, so the first demerit is absolved. They also spoke to her a little bit. So beyond the fact that we had to use translator, and they didn't seem to have a problem with that, and they did ask a few questions through my landlord. I just couldn't have her answer for me. There were a few things that were of a little bit of a surprise. So one, yes, both of us were allowed to use the Google Translator. You can have someone reiterate the questions in your language, but you cannot have another party answer on your behalf. That part I understood. When they spoke with her, they wanted the additional copy of the lease. So I should have had an additional redundant copy of everything submitted. However, some of these documents were supposed to be original documents. I didn't have an additional photocopy of a certified copy of documents. I won't have to worry about that piece any further. The other parts that were of interest, they wanted additional references. Now, on the application form, you have to list 3 local Nicaraguans that know you. And the information they need is they need their full legal name, they need a phone number for contact, and they need their complete mailing address. So you know my jokes about how long the mailing addresses are. There wasn't a lot of room on the hard copy form for me to write in 25 and 35 word addresses for each individual, but not knowing a lot of people here or having people that could vouch for me in a professional manner, the first person I listed was my buddy Ron, who you've seen on the other video. And I've known Ron now 2.5 years. He was my original tour guide here, October of 22. Gave me the warm feeling that this was definitely a place I wanted to look at further, and has helped me out twice now since I've been here on this trip. The second reference I listed was my attorney, who already has a professional standing with them, is easy to research. He's got licenses with the government, and I figured that's another good person to have on file with the government. And the third person I had listed was my tutor. Now, I've only known her for about 6-7 weeks now, but I figured as far as a person that could vouch for the validity of how I am trying to learn to speak the local language, to add to the fact that I am truly trying to assimilate. I'm not sitting here trying to make Nicaragua into Florida. So those were the 3 names I had on the form. They wanted full information on my landlord, and they wanted full information on additional person, which luckily happened to be the realtor who we got on the phone, and she sent a picture of her cedula, which is your ID card. So I actually had to have a total of 5 references. 3 were already on the form. They wanted 2 additionals beyond what was on the form. So we were able to do that. They allowed us to get Wendy on the phone. We got that information, and that part of it worked out nicely. So the other things they were looking at, they wanted to see source documents for my income. So again, in the application form, you've got the copy of the original source documents for the pensions, which were apostilled by U.S. Department of State and State of Florida. You have those documents officially translated into Spanish, and you had the translations with the apostilles, with the original documents, notarized by the local attorney, and they took most of that at Migracion, but they didn't take the copy of the notarization of the apostilles. So I still had those, so I was able to provide those hard copies, which are official copies, so they could confirm my 3 sources of pension. They also wanted to see my passport, obviously, which I have to have on me at all times, so they had that. They wanted to see my Social Security card. So I have it with me. That was good to have. Other documents that they wanted to see today. Oh, they wanted to see the name of my bank. I happen to have a copy of my latest bank statement because I had identified the deposits from my 3 pensions on it when I went to Migracion in Managua. They didn't want that copy. They wanted the official letter from my attorney stating the sources of my income. Well, here they wanted to know the name of the bank, and they wanted to know why I didn't have a bank in Nicaragua yet. And if I didn't have a bank in Nicaragua, how was I going to get my money? Which I explained to them, one, until I get residency, I'm not authorized to have a bank account here. There isn't a great need for me to have a local bank account here. There's a couple conveniences, but not really a need. And honestly, I can go to an ATM and I can pull money in cord or dollars. And I use a Charles Schwab International debit card, which is linked to my actual debit card. I don't use my U.S. debit card outside of the United States. That stays locked up. So you don't have direct access to my primary banking account. You have direct access to money that I feed into an account that in the event it was lost or stolen, I could mitigate loss, call the card canceled, stolen, get a new one mailed to me internationally very quickly. And you could only pull up to $800 a day out of those accounts. So that's a good financial protection tool. So I showed them the bank name. What else did they want today? They also, they wanted to again, everybody loves to confirm this. I am single. I have no dependents, that I've never been married. I don't have ex-wives. I don't have wives. I don't have children. I'm under no legal questions of whether or not I have children. I beat all that, decades ago. But it's a very common question here. You sure you don't have children? You sure you don't have a wife somewhere? You sure you're not going to be bringing more people here? Thing. So that's all kind of strange. When it was all said and done, they got all the information they needed from me. I did let them know after the initial conversation with Migracion last week in Managua, when they informed me that I was going to need to do an extension, and I let them know I had, prior to the expiration of my tourist visa, I already have a flight back to Florida, and I will be out of country for 2.5 weeks. So here's where I can assume that my interview went well. They let me know that there's a law, and it's been around for some amount of time. It doesn't matter how long, but most people are unaware of it. Once you have your pensionado, and I will assume rentista, it may be all three forms, but if you get your cedula because you're now a resident, you now have to submit in writing the reason why you want to leave, the time you will be gone, and show proof of itinerary. My assumption to why they're asking this is, once I get residency, I'm required to be in country over half the year. I can only be out of country 180 days. I have no intentions of being back in the States 180 days a year, but I'm assuming it's because somehow people have abused the program or they've lost contact with individuals. So I've already got my itinerary for when I fly back next and return back, already got those plane tickets reprinted. I just need to draft up a simple letter, identical pretty much to what my attorney wrote to Migracion, and basically state to them that I'm flying back to Florida on these dates and the primary reason. Well, I let these guys know I have to fly back every 90 days for medication that was too expensive to buy in Nicaragua. And they goes, I guess you're going to be using the same letter every 3 months. So small administrative requirement, but because we got to that level of the conversation, it does sound like I will be approved. So now that the interview that I've been sweating so profusely is over, my blood pressure is down, and I was able to calmly articulate this in this video without speaking really fast and really strange. Now I wait for an additional phone call, because I never got the first phone call. They just showed up 8 days after submission. Not 3 weeks, not 3 months, not 6 months. I knew I was a good candidate on paper. I really did not expect the government to work this efficiently and quickly in processing the paperwork. So kudos to the two gentlemen. I did not get names. I didn't try to get overly friendly. I didn't offer them food bribes or anything. But kudos to the two professionals that showed up here. They were gracious with me with my lack of Spanish. They worked with me because, again, the government's trying to work with you, not against you here. So that might be a strange philosophy to some, depending on where you live or depending on your prior experience with governmental agencies, as I worked in government for 20 years. But very impressed with the professionalism and the speed and efficiency that they worked in. So kudos. But now I am supposed to be waiting for a phone call that tells me to show up to Migracion in Managua with the proof that I have the ability to pay for a plane ticket out of here. I actually have plane tickets prepaid. I will have that letter about my trip in June, July with me. I will go to Migracion in Managua. I will pay $155 for a 1-year residency card, pick up my cedula, and mark the calendar, because that cedula, the ID card, needs to be reissued in 6 months, and then I need to reapply for this program 6 months after that with another reissue of card. So the card gets reissued every 6 months. I reapply for the program once a year. Sounds like a little bit of a hassle. Honestly, once you get the initial paperwork done, it's less paperwork required in the future. And with the residency, what am I truly getting for this? Well, one, I'm allowed to open up local bank accounts. I can open up local credit accounts. So I have a Price Smart card, which is like Costco. Now with residency, I'd be able to apply for the local Amex card with them because they take Amex or cash. I don't currently have an Amex card. I don't have a large need for an Amex card, but it would be useful when going to Price Smart because then I could spend more than what I have in cash in my pocket and then just turn around and pay the bill off at the end of the month. I could potentially finance a vehicle. If I had enough assets secured, I could try to finance a home. That's way too much, and I'm not looking to finance a vehicle. If I do buy a car in about a year's time, I'm just paying cash for it. So the bigger perks will be I am authorized to get a tax exemption on up to $20,000 of household goods. That was my primary concern. I do have a handful of sentimental items, clothing, basic things like that, but I do have electronics. Much of the electronics will not count as household goods, but I did buy a stereo system for a TV, so I have a home theater system without the television that's in storage that will be considered household goods. I have a handful of small things. I have about half of a 10-foot container worth of stuff to be shipped. I may very well do it by piecework through MVO's Fast Track and then not worry about the majority of this, or possibly just ship pallets instead of a container's worth. The other kicker was the vehicle exemption, which isn't a kicker for me. It's not economically viable to ship a vehicle here anymore. And the last one will be you're eligible for up to $50,000 with a tax exemption for home improvement products that are brought in. So when it's time to build, there is that perk. So I am over the hurdle. The last thing on my plate for assimilating into my new host nation is learning the language. The interview's done. I'll happily take an express chicken bus for less than $3 early in the morning to go to Managua to get the cedula printed, to pay my money for it, grab lunch in town. Now that the rush is over, take another express back. You know, it's 5 hours in vehicles well, it's 6 hours with the taxis. It's 6 hours in the car in a vehicle that day. With the issuance of the card, I will assume I'll be in Migracion less than 2 hours because I have the least amount of moving parts and they get to collect money. But yeah, today was a win. I jokingly posted it was like taking a very large Band-Aid off your chest. It hurt for a few seconds. It was painful for a few minutes, and now I'm glad it's over with. It was not as bad as I feared it would be. Again, they were very gracious with my lack of Spanish, which was my only concern. I didn't have a concern of whether I was a good candidate. I had a concern what I was going to be able to articulate to them that I was a good candidate. On paper, they already knew it. They just asked to confirm what they already knew. And I had a pleasant visit with them. So again, kudos to the Migracion people in Managua and the remote officers that came out today. Thank you for your time and effort. And that's my update. We are almost in 20 minutes, and I'm going to let you all go with that. I'm getting ready to do the live stream with Scott Allen Miller. If you haven't been to his channels before, please jump over. Scott Allen Miller, expat living in Nicaragua. And with that, I wish you all well. Please hit like, subscribe, share, tell people about these videos, especially if you're interested in moving here. Again, this is the information valid at the time I record it. This is what happened for me. This is my perception of it, but it's going great. So I wish you all well, and adios.